Right, good afternoon to you and welcome to the program. It's Good Afternoon Ghana. We're continuing with the budget analysis that the debate or its debate has already started in Parliament. So about 2 days ago, we had the Finance Minister appear according to the law in Parliament to present the budget review, and parliamentarians have already started a debate. So we're going to continue with the help of understanding some of the issues that have come up within the budget and see how you, the ordinary person, will also accept and understand what exactly is going on the ground. It's the mid-year budget review. And Dr. Tia Abdul Kabir Mahama is Economic Advisor, Office of the Vice President, who will join us. And also Professor John Gachi, Dean of the University of Business School, that's the University of Cape Coast Business School. He will also join us. And also Osman Ayariga, Deputy National Organizer for the NDC. He will also join us as we talk about the issues. We'll go for a quick breather. When we come back, we'll get into the issues. All right, you're welcome back to the program. It's Good Afternoon, Ghana, and Usman Ayariga has joined me, Deputy National Organizer for the NDC. Usman, thank you for joining us in the studio here this afternoon. You're welcome. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much. Deputy National Youth Organizer.
Youth Organizer. I'm sorry. Pardon me for the omission. Right. So Usman is here. Professor John Gachi will join us later, and also Dr. Tia Abdul Kabir Mahama of the Vice President Office will also join us. He's a technical advisor. But let's take you through a journey of what happened in Parliament as far as the presentation of the mid-year budget is concerned.
Section 23 of Ghana's Public Financial Management Act mandates the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, to not later than the 31st of July of each financial year prepare and submit to Parliament a mid-year fiscal policy review. Ken Ofori-Atta began his presentation by conceding government has poorly managed the Ghanaian economy. Now, Ken Ofori-Atta again said the COVID-19 pandemic posed a great challenge to him and the MPP, forcing government to seek refuge from the International Monetary Fund.
Mr. Speaker, although pension funds were exempted from the main DDEP, we continue to engage them. Mr. Speaker, we are also engaging with the IPPs on debt relief and financing arrangements to achieve both debt sustainability for Ghana and financial sustainability for the energy sector. As part of the restructuring process for external debt, government requested the treatment of the bilateral debt under the G20 Common Framework beyond the Debt Service Suspension Initiative. Government also held a series of engagements with its bilateral creditors via the Paris Club to provide financing assurances to support Ghana's IMF ECF request.
The Finance Minister further provided updates on Ghana's IMF bailout program, outlining some targets to be realized before a first review of the program in September 2023.
We also secured IMF financing equivalent to 3 times Ghana's quota. We front-loaded disbursement of IMF resources with 40% in 2023 and the rest to be spread between 2024 and 2026, and successfully concluded a domestic exchange program. The results are clear. We are witnessing the catalytic impact of crowding in other resources. We are in discussions with the World Bank for a 900 million development policy operation and emergency support.
A domestic debt restructuring program by the government as part of conditionalities to achieve the International Monetary Fund loan sparked an uproar amongst Ghanaians, the business community, and the government. During Ken Ofori-Atta's presentation in Parliament, he said government is working with key partners to provide liquidity and solvency to support financial institutions in the country.
Mr. Speaker, the financial sector comprising commercial banks, special deposit-taking institutions, insurance sector, and fund managers participated significantly in the DDEP. The effects of the debt operation in the financial sector is elevated liquidity and solvency risk from impairment losses. Regulators, including the Bank of Ghana, provide a temporary regulatory forbearance to mitigate the liquidity impact of the DDEP. Importantly, government is working with key partners to to establish a Ghana Financial Stability Fund to provide liquidity and solvency support to the financial institutions. The eligibility criteria agreed with regulators and international partners will be published soon.
Now, according to the minister, all arrears owed caterers under the school feeding program for the 2022 academic year and the first term of the 2023 academic year have been settled.
Under the Ghana School Feeding Program, coverage increased considerably from the 1.67 million beneficiaries in 2016 to 3.8 million beneficiaries by 2023. The feeding grants cost per meal, per child, per day increased from 1 cedi to 120 cedis, 1 cedi 20 pesos for the 2023 academic year. We have also settled all arrears owed to caterers under the program for the second and third terms of the 2022 academic year and the first term of the 2023 academic year.
The government says it is focused on structural reforms to address systematic weaknesses in various sectors of the economy. For Metro News, I'm Kenneth Jesse.
Alrighty, welcome back. So that is just a brief journey of what has happened, what the finance minister, some of the things that the finance minister also disclosed. Well, I think that I will get to the openings first, and then we'll give you how the debate has already started on the floor of Parliament. So, Usman, thank you for your time. Usually we'll have the biggest opposition, I would say, release a brief statement after the budget has been presented and what they say. Are you preparing to do that now, or you're not going to do that this time?
I think the minority is working on a statement. I think there's supposed to be a press conference, but I'll leave that to the minority. They are working on something. But most importantly, even before we hear from the minority, I think if you go out there and you listen to Ghanaians, that is even more important and more intriguing. If you understand the kind of suffering, the kind of pain, the kind of hunger, the kind of hardship people are going through, trust me, you don't even need a minority to bring out an official response or a press conference. I mean, actually speaking and frankly speaking, if you read or listened to what the finance minister said, it just tells you that we should be in for more trouble and more trouble. And it doesn't look like there's going to be any end in sight, or there's even going to be any light at the end of the tunnel. If you would permit me to even go into what he said on, I think it was on a Tuesday. I mean, it is clearly a monumental failure coming from the government and also the finance minister. The finance minister has performed abysmally. He's been a disaster as a finance minister, and that cannot be overemphasized by me here. Even the Ghanaians are going through that level of hardship, and they understand what you're going through. This is a finance minister who went to Parliament last year, and by no form of any intimidation or being coerced by anyone, he set his own standards that he thought he was going to meet willingly and thought he was going to meet based on the data and the figures and the numbers and the kind of resources that he thought was going to be available to him. Now you come through mid-year and you review all those measures and all those standards. And the interesting thing is that he's not even revising them upwards, but it's either reviewing them downwards.
Like the growth rate.
Yes, clearly what it tells you is that this is someone who has set exams for himself, puts out the marking scheme for himself, and he comes out to tell you that I've not performed well, so let us reduce the marking scheme. I mean, I think this is the basic way to even explain this.
I mean,
to
I
any
agree, but
ordinary
maybe let's take it that
Ghanaian.
this is a review of what we call SMART goals. Maybe the goals we set were too ambitious, and we could not achieve it. So looking at the indicators, you know that the goals you've set for yourself are too high. I mean, it will make rather reasonable economic sense to review them downwards so that you can achieve them, and then maybe going forward you can look at reviewing them again upwards.
That is why even before you start, you need to set realistic goals. So what the basic question now is that, were you just setting those goals to entice Ghanaians, or you're setting those goals to make Ghanaians happy? He had with him available data, he had with him available numbers to be able to set realistic goals. And trust me, the numbers he's put out there are not really the realistic goal, because what I'm trying to tell you is that he has gone even below the standard per sub-Saharan Africa in terms of most of the indicators. If you take example, GDP growth, sub-Saharan Africa are doing between 3.5% to 3.6% average this year. So if you are even going below that 3.5 to 3.6% sub-Saharan Africa, and you are giving us 1.5%, this is a monumental failure. This is not about whether he's now trying to set realistic goals. He's setting realistic goals due to his own failure, not what he can do and what he cannot. This is as a result of his own failure. If we look at growth rate, GDP, just this year, projections. Now, Cote d'Ivoire is doing 6.2% in terms of GDP growth. Most of the time, when you mention Cote d'Ivoire, then they tell you, oh, Cote d'Ivoire, because of the French alliance, so they have their central bank in France. No problem. We can decide to even put that aside. You look at Nigeria, is doing 3.2%, neighboring Nigeria. You go to Mauritius, they are doing 4.6%. Kenya is doing 5.3%. Rwanda is doing 6.2%. Ethiopia is doing 6.1%. So clearly, this tells you that the Ghanaian case is a case of being a monumental failure. You remember quite recently when we kept telling them that our currency was the worst performing currency just after Sri Lanka. And they kept telling us that, oh, it was a result of COVID and Russia-Ukraine war, forgetting that the whole world was hit by COVID. So how is it that our currency last year was the worst performing currency after Sri Lanka in the whole world, not just Africa, in the whole wide world? This just tells you how hopeless of a situation we are in, how incompetent of a finance minister we have, and how clueless of a government we have. And amidst all of these bad adjectives, they are also reckless in their spending, reckless in their borrowing, and they are not just being human to the Ghanaian people.
Well, when you say reckless in spending, it's one of the areas that we're all looking at, where we think that there's a possibility of government cutting down expenditure. Which areas do we now want government to cut down that government is not heeding to?
First and foremost, government came out with the usual mantra, of course, which they are very good at doing, that we are going to share the burden, meaning citizens and government are going to share the burden in trying to recover this economy. The citizens of this country, myself included, yourself included, were willing to share the burden to be able to resuscitate this economy. But clearly, government did not stick to its words. And I'll give you a classical example. You go to capital expenditure, which has to do with payment of contractors. Government owes contractors to the tune of 15 billion in excess. Now, as part of their burden sharing, government projected to pay only 5 billion this year. They are now trying to do just 1.4 billion cedis this year. So meaning that the contractors have already taken a chunk of that burden. Now, when we talk about the contractor, that is you and I, because once a contractor is paid, you and I, in one way or the other, we do business with a contractor because they live with us, they buy from us, we sell to them, etc., etc. So then it has affected spending. Now, government in itself has increased its expenditure as far as goods and services is concerned. They projected to do 4.1 billion, but now they are increasing to 4.7 billion. And this has to do with goods and services. And it is the same goods and services expenditure that has brought us to this abyss or this current mess or this current hole we find ourselves in. So if government were committed to cutting expenditure, they would have been tackling goods and services more. But rather, they went in for our very hard-working contractors who have to now take the chunk of the brunt of the government. So if government were cutting its expenditure in terms of goods and services, which we all know what goods and services is all about. It's all about their movement, allowances, etc., etc. They move in fuel and what have you, stationary. So if government were even to cut its expenditure in terms of goods and services, then we would believe that yes, government is committed to actually sharing the burden. But what we see now is that government has shifted the burden from government to the citizens, and that we cannot accept.
Let me bring Dr. Kabiru. Dr. Kabiru, can you hear me? Good afternoon. Hello, Doc.
Yeah, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for your time at this moment. Usman is just saying that government. It seemed, I mean, I've heard your opening remarks on the budgets, on Good Morning Ghana and other platforms, but he's just saying that government is seen to be shifting their responsibility onto citizens instead of the burden sharing, as government actually earlier on indicated that that's what we should do. Do you agree? If not, why?
So, again, good afternoon to you and to your cherished viewers, and also to my brother, Mr. Osman Ayaraga. Of course, you give Mr. Osman Ayaraga an opportunity to speak, and you don't expect him to, come giving government claps and then singing that government has done relatively well, done well. He is expected to at least criticize and then say all those sort of things he's saying. But if you see government is shifting the burden on Ghana, how does government hasn't done that with this particular budget? I mean, the video presentation, government has not actually asked the Ghanaian people by way of paying more taxes. Government has not actually stated that in this particular budget, I'm imposing more fiscal regime, more fiscal measures. That's going to impose more burden on the Ghanaian people. What basically government did was to highlight the fact that we have had some successes. Government has contained expenditure, and the containment of that expenditure has led to a primary surplus, fiscal primary balance of positive 1.2% of GDP. Government has actually acknowledged that inflation is going up, but government is doing everything to stem the tide of inflation by bringing it from 54% to 42%. Government is mindful of the fact that exchange rate is very high, and the government has done everything possible and has brought some stability into the exchange rate market. That was basically what the government did. Government also acknowledged that we are doing, and we are on an IMF program. And this program means that we need to do certain things in order to enhance the fortunes of the Ghanaian people, which includes social spending. So the finance minister actually was very categorical in his presentation that government is enhancing spending on the vulnerable. If it's not something about supporting the Ghanaian people, supporting the vulnerable in society, supporting the people who matter most, when we are in crisis, then I don't think that there is any other better approach that will support the Ghanaian people, especially the vulnerable in time of crisis. Remind you, under this program, we are increasing spending to the vulnerable. There are challenges with the economy. We admit that there are challenges. We are the first to admit that things could have been better, but for the challenges with since 2020. But if you say this is imposing more burden and shifting away from responsibility and asking the Ghanaian people to take responsibility, I've not seen that in that budget. I've not come across any statement suggesting that. I've not come across any metrics suggesting that. And I've not seen putting the totality of the presentation of the finance minister in context. I cannot pinpoint essentially any single part that suggests what my brother is conveying. So, why he will not give credit. I will understand what.
Can I come in?
Yeah, you can come in, please.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that I think there's been a long-standing argument and debate on government cutting down its expenditure, government size and all. For example, recently when the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources resigned, I thought that it was one of the ministries that we probably could just take the water resources, merge it with one ministry, and scrap this whole Ministry of Sanitation, which obviously is not yielding results. I don't know if it has yielded some results, you can tell us. But it was an opportunity for government to do something to show that the little gap that we see, we fill that gap and reduce the pressure on the citizen. Is it not something that someone can argue from that angle?
Annie, look, the truth is that we are being emotional, and when it comes to the executive, everyone points fingers at the executive and thinking that everything can be done without the executive. And that's always been the problem. How much do you think we can save from scrapping 2 ministries? Say say sanitation and then gender ministry. How much can we save? You cannot do away with any civil servant who is there. You cannot do away with any of except the minister and probably his PA. Most of these ministers are members of parliament anyway. Okay, so they will still be paid from the common fund. They will still be paid, from the consolidated fund. So this emotive argument about scrapping ministries and all those. I can tell you that even if we put this country together and run it with 4 ministries, the reduction in expenditure is not anything. Just imagine a 1% increment in salary of workers. It can take care of the annual budget of about 3 ministries. Okay, so but we always engage in this emotive discussion of scrapping ministry because people will want you to see the antics. But for me, the real measure of the impact of government cost-saving measure is in the numbers. So, for instance, if you take the private balance that we are seeing, it basically tells the government is containing expenditure because through the period it has reduced expenditure and has cut down expenditure by 21 billion without cutting down any ministry. So if you want the government to probably say that all executives should go home to sit down, government should run from the presidency or all ministries should be consolidated, we are just being emotional about the issue. We are not looking at the data. I tell you that certain ministries, when even this issue came up, if you look at the budget of certain ministries, even departments, commissions, they are far more than budgets of certain ministries, commissions. And these are statutory agencies. Okay, so that argument, I feel like it is more, a populist move. Is more about emotive play of the issue, but it doesn't address the real issues of our economy. Look, the executive, even if you say that you want to put a moratorium on the payment of all executives, it is not going to be a solution to the problem we are having. Of course, people will argue about signaling, and the president has signaled that enough. He has cut down the salary of appointees by some 20%. He has cut down discretionary spending by about 20%. Yet still, people are saying that government should scrap ministries. You see, these are some of the things that I feel like we are not addressing the issue. We are only being emotional. No one has been able to even tell me that if you scrap a ministry like gender ministry, you are going to save 100 million. Okay, you've not done those analysis, yet you just want people to scrap a ministry like sanitation ministry. And without giving us the presentation of numbers that the cost saving that is going to be, mind you, the administrative work that is being done by the sanitation ministry is going to be done by another ministry, because you can't say issues of sanitation would necessarily require no administrative work. Okay, the fact that you have consolidated means you are just only clustering and centralizing the work. No, except the minister, no, and his deputy, who probably will not be a minister, no cost saving is going to be, we are going to get from that minister. So please, let us, when we are discussing this, let's stick to the numbers. Let's ask by what amount can we reduce? And I say that this budget has actually demonstrated that government is containing expenditure. And if you want the proof of that, go to the budget. A 1.2% reduction in percentage of GDP.
So in the maybe before I come to Usman, let me throw this one in. Maybe you might see it as, a drop in the ocean, but it's the drops in the ocean that makes the bigger ocean. For example, Cecilia Dapa's issue of spending $43 million to desilt Odo River. The Odo River has been desilted with $43 million. If you compare, or if you want to take that $43 million into other policies or projects of government, I'm sure you know that it could have taken care of some other things that probably are also priority of government policies. And so the little we're picking from the different ministries can help, because all that we're in is not about the inflation rate. It's really not about so much of the exchange rate. It is the monies that government is lacking, revenue that government doesn't have to, push into policies, which is why we've gone out for loans. And these loans, we are obviously putting them in policies that we're not seeing any successful results of it. So I'm not sure you are trying to underestimate what we can gather from one ministry. I'm citing her ministry just as one ministry. We can gather from one ministry that will support another policy elsewhere.
Let's use that ministry. Let's use the ministry as an example. So I'm saying that by scrapping that ministry, we will not desilt the Odo River. You see, we will still do that because government would have to do that to protect lives and properties in Accra. So the fact that it means the ministry is not in existence doesn't mean that So no minister will take that responsibility. We can go to cost effectiveness or value for money. That is a different argument. And if you are raising issues about how much ministries spend on certain projects, that is a different argument. But the mere fact that the ministry is not in existence, it was called Works and Housing. The sanitation was added to that. And the Works and Housing Ministry was in charge of work of sanitation, right? At a point, local government was taking care of that. But that work will still be pursued in any way, whether or not there's a ministry for it or not. Okay, so that is not a cost-saving measure. That is not something that you use as an example to say that the fact that some 43 million is spent on the desilting of the river means that if the ministry was not there, that desilting will not be done. We need to ask, would the desilting still be done? Yes, the answer is yes. Whether or not sanitation ministry in existence, because government would have to protect lives and property in Accra. Does the amount commensurate? That's a different discussion we can have, because that will have to go into the issue of value for money. And when we are having our discussion, let's segregate the issue. Let's not confuse the issue to suggest that the fact that someone is desilting means that if the ministry was not there, the money would have been used for something else. Okay, I'm not sure that Annie, you are saying that
the argument is not specifically on the silting. The argument is on value for money. If we have tried it and we have tested it and it didn't give us value for money, why continue pushing money into an agency,
this is
a ministry?
You are bringing. So now, this is a different argument, and I'm happy with discussion of value for money. And value for money is mutually exclusive of the number of ministries. You can have 10 ministries, but this contracts could be inflated, and then we are not getting value for the money we spend. So if we are having the discussion about government ensuring discipline, ensuring that we get value for money, that projects awarded are actually awarded at effective cost or cost that commensurate with reality, that's a different discussion that we can have. But if we tie that to the issue of ministries being scrapped, I don't think that is where the solution is. But in any case, let's even come to the issue of value for money. You can either measure government expenditure containment by what I have said. Government will do everything. We take project by project and ask, would a 43 million suffice for this particular project we have done? And we've complained over time. The vice president was the lead person on this particular, asking for the value of hospital that was built under the NDC regime. And we have come to this particular regime. People have the right to also raise the same issue. But when you raise, please provide us a counterpart where similar work was performed at lesser value. Then you have a recourse either to present the issue to SIRAT or what do you call it, special prosecutor. If there's any smell of corruption, then we can take it from there. But otherwise, we will not be making progress as a country. When we make accusation of people inflating contracts, there's no value for money. Yet still, on the face of the evidence you are even reluctant to report to the relevant authorities to take us. And I'm happy we have a very proactive special prosecutor. Okay, if you have any concern about value for money issue, you smell corruption, you see corruption, you hear corruption, you have the right to report.
Usman.
And government would be more than willing to support you to ensure that we seek justice. But value for money is a different discussion. Private ministries is another discussion, because my conviction is that 5 ministries can still do us harm if we do not have men with integrity manning these 5 ministries. And it will spend more to manage the 5 ministries than if we have even 20 ministries for this country.
All right, let me have Usman come in. So you know we've driven all the way into the issue of value for money, and where we are, I just think that at some point in time we are at our wit ends really. So at some point in time we really need to cut down, just cut down. Everywhere you think you have an opportunity, cut down. And let's see if we can gather something small that will support other more pressing needs of governments. And that's what I think I was trying to drive at with him. I didn't want to bring in the issue of some time ago flying of private jets and things like that, because that was going to drive us into other issues. But it is still value for money. And some of the things that we have done that has brought us here, and we don't seem to be ready to accept that some of the activities we have undertaken has actually brought us to our knees.
I mean, basic economics will tell you don't spend what you don't have.
Right.
Or you don't spend based on expected revenue. and you don't spend more than what your budget is going to support. And that has been the lifestyle of this government. They have spent more than what the budget can support, and that is why we keep going into deficits. And they keep borrowing, and instead of going into some capital expenditure, most of it goes into consumption,
But
goods, and
even
services.
with consumption, what
Now,
did we spend on? Salaries.
Example.
Number one.
Example. Flying the presidential jet is so much money. Flying the private jets. The president was flying everywhere in a private jet. That was so much money. But every time we calculated it, they say, oh, it was just about $100,000. It's about $150,000. But put 10 trips together, and that's $1 million. And $1 million
it's kind of the
could
same
do so many
argument
things.
I seem to be having with Dr. Kabiru
But
here.
even before I come back to that issue, let me digress a bit. Dr. Kabiru made mention about the fact that there hasn't been any introduction of new taxes. And I find it very insulting that today the NPP government, which was led by his boss, Alhaji Bawumia, who kept making so much noise that they were going to move this country from taxation to production. And that was a main campaign mantra that the NDC government, led by John Dramani Mahama at the time, had choked this country with so many taxes. Yet today, they are saying that we should thank God that they have not introduced any tax so far as the reading of the mid-year budget review is concerned, forgetting that they have introduced more taxes into the system. And aside from introducing new taxes, the already existing taxes, they have increased the percentage in terms of the tax deductions. So you just go out there to buy something, and you are choking with taxes left, right, center, up, everywhere. And the most obnoxious of all of these taxes is the sanitation tax. So then I'll dovetail into
How about the COVID
sanitation.
levy?
Yes, I mean, COVID levy, we are done with COVID, and they keep telling us that it's for us to recover. And yet, day in, day out, when we blame them for their mismanagement of the economy, they want to rely on COVID. You want to rely on COVID as an excuse for your mismanagement. However, you are taxing we, the citizens, to pay for your inability to manage the economy under the guise that it's for us to recover the economy. So I just do not understand this current NPP government. They are on one breath saying another thing, and another breath saying another, and they keep shifting the goalposts. With the issue of the Odo River, it's good you brought it up and you asked him. I remember in this same country, sometime back in 2015, a company, a Ghanaian-owned company, Engineers and Planners, was dredging the Odo River for free, just using government machinery. So it was dredging the Odo River for free. And what did this NPP government at the time in opposition say? They kept lambasting the businessman. They kept lambasting the company to the extent that he said, I am doing it for free. Yet people are insulting me that I'm making money. Then I will leave it to you to go and dredge your river. That is what has brought us to $40-something million, I think about $46 million US. And of course, if a minister's ministry is dredging a river for $46 million, and we find $1 million in the minister's bedroom. $43 million. And we find $1 million in the minister's bedroom. At least ordinary citizens can do the mathematics and the calculations and know where most of this. It is not definite. Citizens are free to assume. Citizens are free to assume. They are free to make their own deductions. They are free to do whatever calculations they want to do. But I'm saying that if your ministry is dredging a river for $43 million,
do the math, but you might not be correct.
Yes, it may not be correct. That's I'm choosing my words carefully. I'm saying that citizens are at liberty to presume, assume, and make their own deductions. If you are dredging a river in your ministry, which you are still dredging, and the river is still not even done, we are not done dredging the river, at $43 million, and we find $1 million which is being stolen from your bedroom without you noticing, then you leave so much for us to assume and so much for us to make some deductions. So you spoke about the fact that we needed to cut most of the ministries. And he keeps defending, left, right, up, down. And I think most importantly, we really need to look at it. But however, they are just being adamant, they are being arrogant, and they are just refusing to listen to anybody. You cannot run this small country with this number of ministers. They are all drawing salaries, they are all drawing allowances, they are all drawing fuel, they are all using vehicles, the vehicles are being maintained, and that is what brings us to the consumption, goods and services. So you may say that, well, just taking out one minister doesn't mean anything because just one person or two people. But if you look at their total emoluments and what they are enjoying as ministers, as you said, it is the same little drops of water that builds the mighty ocean. So it just looks like, one, the government is clueless. Two, They are refusing to take responsibility for their mess. They are refusing to eat their humble pie. And amidst the ignorance and their inability to run this country, they are also being arrogant at the same time. And they expect us to come out and celebrate mediocrity. How on earth do you think we can celebrate some of the things the finance minister came to tell us 2 days ago? There's nothing in there that is worth celebrating. If you even look at inflation, the finance minister had to review his inflation index. He promised to take us from the 55% that he put us through last year, hyperinflation, to 18%. He came back to review it to 32%. And as it stands now, he's still doing 42%. What it means for you and I, as ordinary citizens, is that our purchasing power is going down the drain.
Yeah,
So
but
if
remember,
our
it's come
hundreds
down
is-
from 52%.
Yes, I mean, it's come down from 52 to 42%.
Yeah.
I don't think that is worth congratulating. That is still mediocrity because we were not at 52.
But
We took over.
it's a sign that, macroeconomic indicators are showing positive. And you cannot, if it's at 52, you obviously cannot drop so greatly to about 10 or 15 or even 20.
You
So
can.
it's positive.
You can. If the government stops the internal borrowing through Bank of Ghana, then you'll be able to drop inflation.
Well, for now, I don't think they can do that. When
Now,
the Bank
for
of
now,
Ghana
for
states-
now, I mean, as for Bank of Ghana's condition, it's another topic for another day. For now, the finance minister, when he came to Parliament the last time, he did mention that there was going to be zero financing, zero internal borrowing. But so far as we are concerned, so far he has done 5.5 billion, and that is what is amounting, that is what is contributing to the inability for the inflation to drop. And he is looking at doing another 41 billion. If you put together that 5.5 billion, which is accounting for our inability to drop in inflation, and you think of adding another 41 billion, you see, when you do the domestic borrowing, what it just means that it's just paper that is going in there. And when I say paper, it's just the fiscal paper in terms of the CD that is going in there. So it reduces in its purchasing value because then there's so much CDs within the system circulating at the same time. So what happens is that now prices of goods and services will start going up. So don't be surprised that at the end of this year, we may be going back to about 50%. I'm not being a prophet of doom, but I'm just being realistic. And once it goes up to 50-something%, what it means is that the little money you
Probably
and
if
I
we
have...
start servicing our debt.
One, if we start servicing our debt, what is going to happen again is that our city is going to start depreciating. Because don't forget that this year we haven't done any external servicing of our debt. Because we're supposed to service a dollar equivalent of about 10 billion Ghana cedis.
Right.
So a dollar equivalent of about 10 billion Ghana cedis, that is around 900 or 800 million dollars. Just look at that quantum of money which is supposed to be used to service our external debt. What it also means is that this so-called artificial stability of the currency. Now the currency will be exposed, and this government will be exposed for what it is. I just fear that if we are not careful, by the close of this year, we are going to have more, or let me say, harsher economic conditions.
There's a statement that's been released by the Bank of Ghana. Just a quick one before we take a breather, and when we can, we wrap up on that. The Bank of Ghana, in terms of maybe dollarization, it says Bank of Ghana notice to general public prohibition of pricing, advertising, and receipt of payment for goods and services in foreign currency in Ghana. And this, it says, the Bank of Ghana announces for the information of the public that it has come to its notice that some companies, institutions, and individuals are dealing in business of foreign exchange without authorization from the bank. The general public is hereby minded that the Foreign Exchange Act 2006 at 723 prohibits the pricing, advertising, and receipt of payment for goods and services in foreign currency in Ghana. Such violations are punishable by summary conviction, a fine up to 700 penalty units of a prison term of not more than 18 months, or both. The sole legal tender in Ghana is the Ghana cedi and Ghana pesos. Signed, Alethea Godson Amamu, MS, for the secretary. So we received a copy of the statement here at Metro TV yesterday. And let me take a quick break. I'll be back and then we'll wrap up on this activity, because definitely that will also inform our financial activities within the economy. Let's see how that is going to affect transactions and eventually affect the macroeconomic indices. I'll be back shortly. Alrighty, welcome back to Good Afternoon, Ghana. I'm still in the studio with Usman Ayariga. Usman Ayariga is the Deputy National Youth Organizer for the NDC. And also, I have via Zoom, Dr. Tia Abdul Kabiru of the Office of the President, Technical Advisor. Doc, thank you for your time. So, what do you make of this? The stability of the currency that is largely it's been described as an artificial one, which, you know, the reality will be established after we start servicing our debts. Do you agree? In fact, that's what we see, though. But do you agree? And if you don't, why?
Yeah, so maybe you've already set the premise that that's why you see. So once you see that, I'm not even sure whether my explanation would help you.
It may, you never know. It just may.
If you ask someone who wants to possibly reasons why the dollar, whether the dollar will stabilize, one will comment or one will resume payment of interest on our obligations to people, probably you have appreciated the answer I would give. But that said, as you've given me the benefit of the doubt that you may be convinced, I'll get to that. One, it is a fact that when you have a moratorium, when you have debt standstill, pressure on your currency will reduce. And by that reduction, it means that your CD or your currency will gain some strength or stability, especially so when the payment of said loan would be in dollar denominated terms. So in comparison on relative terms, the exchange of the dollar for the CD, the dollar will be on the higher side. That is a fact. But it is also a fact that before the announcement of debt standstill and before the actualization of the debt standstill, the CD had gained some value. And the gain of that value cannot and should not be attributed to the debt standstill. Now, if you have a situation where you are gaining the strength of your currency and there was no payment of, there was simultaneously the payment of obligation of interest or, if you like, moratorium was not in place, then you cannot say that because we are now having debt standstill, any success you've made in the foreign exchange market is attributed to the debt standstill. That would be very warped in logic for you to make such a conclusion. So that is one thing I need to ask them. Two, we must also give credit to the measure the government has put in place by way of the export that comes in to support our reserves, by way of the announcement of the gold exchange program, if you like, the gold for oil program, by way of the receipt of the IMF program. You know, when the IMF 600 million came in, the same argument was raised. This is artificial support. This is artificial. But you know, the currency, the Ghanaian currency, even from time immemorial, even in the regime of the NDC, which my brother represents, there was never a time that our CD has performed, appreciated any year against the dollar. Never in the history of this country. But you always want to know which regime is doing better in terms of the pace, in terms of the movement of the exchange rate. That has always been the analysis. No government, and I put no government has come in place where the dollar was once $1 to 5 Ghana cedi, and that government leaves in office and the dollar is $1 to 4 cedi or 3 cedi. Okay, it has never happened. It is always on the rise. It's always measured again because the dollar, I've always explained, is a vehicle currency. Again, the dollar is a common currency used by almost every country, and Ghana is the only country that trades in the Ghanaian cedi. So until such time that we are able to have a bigger economy, we are able to export more than we import, we will not have stability. We will not have what you call our cedi appreciation against the dollar.
So our time is almost out. But I want you to tie in the Bank of Ghana's notice of cautioning the public of transacting business in dollars. Why are we pretenders? So much pretenders in this country. Why are we pretending?
What's the pretense, if I get the clarity?
So the Bank of Ghana wants to say that it does not know institutions, agencies, companies, governments always deal in transactions in dollars.
Yeah, but the statement doesn't suggest it doesn't know. Has he suggested that?
Why is it sending signals when it already knows the culprits?
So the statement is telling you that, in fact, this is not the first time again the central government has issued such
Definitely.
statements.
Yes, but why does it
when they
continue
told,
to
like,
send signals and warnings?
But what do you do as a first? In fact, the law, as it were, or any process is to give caution to people. Okay, when you realize that some people, you see, the foreign exchange market is a very volatile. You cannot clamp down the market like you do for a criminal or a thief. Okay, the approach of dealing with any issue in the forex market is totally different from you do for any person who has committed any kind of like road offenses. Now you just go and arrest the person. You have to be careful not to spook the market. You have to be careful not to do anything that will make people begin to hoard the dollars. You have to be careful. So you have to reissue one step at a time, that you give them caution. If people will listen and don't desist from that, there's no need going to arrest people. But when people refuse to comply by that, and you have said them adequate notice, then you then probably, activate your next step. But you don't say that because they know or probably they are aware. If they were not aware and if it has not come to their notice, they will not issue such a notice. Okay, so they are aware. But my point is that they will have to take first measure first, caution the general public. You and I know that it is not proper for us to keep even our money in dollars and keeping it in our homes. Okay, we know that, but still we do it. We know this country that, and the last time I told you, I challenged you that, and I even told you that, look, it is possible that in Ayerika's phone, Osman Ayerika's phone, it's possible in Annie's phone, there's someone called Abu Dollar, where you go to him to change your currency. Does that mean that if I see that and I hear that, I should call the Bank of Ghana to let them come and arrest you? No, I have to talk to you. I have to appeal to you that particular measure you are taking is not good for the economy. And that is essentially what the central bank is doing. It is not a suggestion that the central bank is doing something that they could have just gone to arrest people instead of sending caution. But the human being, we are all corporate of these issues.
Right.
And we will sit on television, we sit on podium, we pretend that we are the best and we like the nation. But within us, every single Ghanaian is a contributor to this particular problem, not even under this government, but even the previous government, where we have the problem with the stability of the currency.
Right. Abu Dollar, you have 1 minute. You have just 1 minute. Yes.
And as I said, I wanted to really talk about the mess at the Bank of Ghana, but since this is specific to the release, I think Bank of Ghana knows every institution that is transacting in dollars in this country. So I do not really know who or what that release is actually seeking to achieve.
The Bank of Ghana keeps doing this, even in your
this is not the
government.
first time. This is not the first time. I think the Bank of Ghana should actually go for citizens and ministers of state who are stashing packs of dollars in their various homes, millions of dollars in their various homes, to the extent that $1 million and over can be stolen. They do not even recognize or even notice it. Those are the kind of individuals Bank of Ghana should be going after. And they should spare us this cacophony of every time issuing release about one institutions that are dealing in dollars, etc., etc. Now, with every institution, before they deal in dollars, they actually write to the Bank of Ghana before they are given the go-ahead to deal in dollars. Most of the hotels that you see that they write the dollar amount is just for you to be able to pay the cedi equivalent of that dollar. I'm yet to see me going into any hospitality industry, any hotel or any company where they tell me that I should pay physical dollars.
We are doing it blatantly in the glare view of the public. So I don't know why the Bank of Ghana would just keep they're playing with. Anyway,
even in front of the Bank of Ghana's gates, the Bank of Ghana headquarters, the building,
there's
the
Abu Dollar there.
There's Abu Dollar there, so I'm not surprised.
Please, we'll end it here.
But they should go for the ministers who are packing dollars in their rooms.
Well, so there's an issue of the Bank of Ghana, and it's we have the DDEP, we have the Cocoa Board loans and its DDEP also coming up. We have the bank's collapse and what the Bank of Ghana itself did not do right that led them into losing so much money. That's accounted for about 60 billion Ghana cedis as a bank. So we don't have a lot of time to go into it. So another time we'll table that, Usman. I'm sure we'll have you some other time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for now, thank you for your time. Usman Ayarga is Deputy National Youth Organizer for the NDC, and also Dr. Tia Abdul Kabir Mahama is also Economic Advisor, Office of the Vice President. We couldn't have Professor John Kachi. I'm told he's caught up in a meeting, so maybe another time we'll do that. Thank you for coming into this. So apologies for the mistake on the flyer. I'm sure it was an omission. So I don't know if you received it. Yes. It was captured differently. So thank you. Right, my name is Ania Frampofo. Thank you for watching. Yes. So we'll get that corrected another time. Thank you. And thanks for watching. Entertainment Review is next.